Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you might have to be a little loud just because of traffic. Can I have you say and spell your first and last name?
No, I will not.
Will not? You can't?
I'll give you my name, but I won't spell it.
Okay.
My name is Jim Sanders.
Jim Sanders?
Yes.
Okay, and your title?
Jim Sanders.
Okay, and why are you walking today?
I'm walking because my driver's license has been suspended, and it's the only way to get where I need to go.
Why carry a gun?
I have the right to do it for protection. I've got valuables on me. I've been walking on the highway, and you never know who's going to come up against you, or, you know, especially in the middle of the night or even in the daytime. So it's for protection, and I've got the right to do it. It's something everybody should do. If everybody did it, it wouldn't be a big deal to anybody. It's safe. No, I mean, the whole time you've been with me, I've not even touched it. Mm-hmm. I'm just carrying it. This is the safe way to carry it, and it's not pointing at anybody. I'm not trying to threaten anyone. So.
And you told me earlier this is an assault rifle. What type of weapon?
I didn't say it was an assault rifle.
Okay. It's not. You said correct.
It's my arms.
It's arms. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been approached by an officer today or yesterday?
Oh yeah.
What's
about
the response?
8 or 9 times.
8 or 9 times?
Yeah.
What's been the response?
I haven't had a police officer do anything to me in Lafayette. I've had them look at me and follow me for a little bit, check me out, but they haven't stopped me. Even though I'm doing what I'm doing, I figured they'd already stopped me a long time ago. But I've had deputies, state troopers, all along the way stop me and see if ask me a question. I'd talk to them and give them a moment. And if I felt comfortable with them, I would talk to them as long as they wanted to if I needed the break. Or if I wasn't comfortable with them, I would just ask them if I was being detained or arrested. And if not, I'd walk away.
You're walking to the pharmacy today, correct?
At the moment, yes.
And is this the closest pharmacy? Why this pharmacy?
This is the pharmacy I get my prescriptions at all the time.
Okay.
And I have to get my prescriptions at one place.
Why can't you drive?
Because my license was suspended. And I don't drive anyway. I travel.
You travel?
The word drive means to be paid to go somewhere.
Okay. So you travel?
Yeah, from point A to point B in my automobile, not a motor vehicle.
Okay. And
the definition of a motor vehicle is an automobile being used for commercial purposes. And I don't ever use my automobile for commercial purposes. It's always private. And I would be I got 3 of them. I'd be in one right now if I didn't feel like if I was pulled over, I'd have a bunch of guns pulled on me. Because the last time that happened, and I'm not going to have it happen again.
Can you talk to me a little bit about being pulled over, why you're pulled over, the fines you're given? You're talking, this is kind of a way to protest those fines. And,
well, I'm not going to pay their extortion fees or fines. They're fines, not fees. I'm not going to pay a fine for when I didn't have to turn my turn signal on, when the officer just wrote me a ticket. He radioed in, said he was pulling me over for registration expiration. And I had already had the registration tag, I just hadn't put it on the car. And I didn't pull over where he wanted me to because I wasn't safe. It was dark, cold, and so I called 911, told 911 what I was doing. They told him what I was doing. At first I turned on my flashers to let him know I was there, or knew he was there. And I told them my name, told them what I was doing, that I wasn't going to pull over where he was wanting to stop me. I pulled over at the Dayton BP, and 4, or I think 5, I think it was 4, but it could have been 5, officers stopped me and pulled their guns out and forced me on my car for a registration expiration. No crime. It wasn't a crime. I didn't threaten anybody, and they point guns at me. Well, that's the last time a cop's going to point a gun at me if I'm not committing a crime. That's just ridiculous. They all should be fired right now. For anyone that pulled a gun or anyone that was involved in that stop, forcing me out of my car at gunpoint and searching me unlawfully when no crime was committed. They searched me right there, touched my back, which causes pain, kept me out in the cold for 20, 30 minutes, and I finally begged them to let me in the back seat of one of their cars. And they let me in the back seat, which was horrible for me to do, but I was too cold. My back was spasming so bad. And then after, at the very end of one of the officers asked the original officer that pulled me over, said, what'd you pull him over for? He said, expiration date on his expired plates. But at the end of the traffic stop, he decided to give me a failure to signal ticket. He never mentioned that to the very end. Now why? Because he got mad I didn't pull over where he wanted me to pull over. Why'd they pull guns out on me? Because he didn't like the idea. Well, that's not a reason. You got to have a reason to pull a gun out and point at somebody. I didn't have what you would call a gun. I wasn't armed at the moment, at that time. And I was just in my car going home, trying to get home to go to bed.
You say you don't, is this a gun? Is this a gun to you or no?
It's an arms to me.
Can you specify why it's an arms versus a gun?
Well, a lot of people would call this a firearm, but the definition of a firearm is not what you think it is. The definition of a firearm is anything less than, I think, 16 or 18 inches, 24 over, with a barrel of 16 or less than inches, with a smooth bore barrel, with the overall length of, I think, 24 inches. Well, you can tell this is longer than 24 inches, and it looks like a rifle, right?
Yes.
So it's got a rifled barrel, not a smooth bore. That is a firearm. So like a sawed-off shotgun, that would be considered a firearm.
So
or a pistol that didn't, a small shotgun something that didn't have rifling in it.
Would you call this a rifle, an assault? What would you call it?
I call it arms.
Just arms is not specifically. If I say it's a rifle, you're
personal protection.
Personal protection.
Yeah.
Why can't I call it a rifle? Why can't I call it an assault?
Well, you call it anything you want. I call it an arms.
Okay. People worried about seeing a man on the street. Why?
Why would they be worried? I'm not pointing at anybody. I'd be worried if someone was pointing a gun at somebody, and I'd stop and see if the person needed help. But I'm not pointing at anybody. It's safe. I'm carrying it safe. I'm not trying to wave it around. It's just I'm carrying it. I got to carry it. I'm not carrying what you would call a pistol or a handgun. So this is what I'm carrying right now, and for personal protection.
Why not cab? Why not have someone drop you off?
Why should I?
Just a question.
Well, but why do I? See, there's the whole point. There's not a need for a driver's license to begin with. They're totally unlawful. You've been duped into believing that you have to have a driver's license, and it's a privilege. Well, it's a right to go up and down these highways. You don't have to have a driver's license. I do it under duress and without prejudice, and only because how do you do business in this world? Well, I don't want to have an issue with another police officer where they point guns at me and we have a problem. That's not going to happen. Because either him or I are going home. One of us is not going home. And so I'm trying to be safe. If I get in my car right now and they pull me over, I could run a risk of getting harmed or having to harm someone else to defend myself.
So back to the pullover. Do you know which was this Indiana State Police officer that pulled you?
Lafayette police officers.
Lafayette.
And one deputy. Tippecanoe County.
So this main protest is against them, correct?
I wouldn't say it was against Lafayette police officers. I think any one of those officers that were involved in that should be fired because they don't know the law, number one. And for pulling a gun out on somebody when they weren't threatening him. And for unlawfully searching him. They had no reason to search me. There was no crime. There was no warrant for my arrest. No one reported anything. No affidavit of truth saying I committed a crime. No judge saying I just take me to jail. He just pulled me over for a registration violation, which you don't even have to have on a private automobile. You only have to have that if you're using these roads as public for personal gain, commercial purposes would be a better way of saying it. If you're being paid to use these roads, you should have to have a driver's license and a plate, or whatever the government tells you they want, or the corporate government. I call it corporate government. Whatever they tell you that you have to do. If you're being paid, if you're using these roads for profit, then you should have to acquiesce and consent to whatever they want. But I don't use these roads for profit. I use it for my private travel from point A to point B.
When did you have your court hearing? Judge suspended your license. When was all of this?
Court hearing was, I've had several involved in this, but the first court hearing, the actual jury trial was, and I say jury trial, not trial by jury of my peers, because there's a big difference, was March the 25th or 28th, something like that.
And you say people, March 28th, you said, I'm sorry?
March the 25th or 28th of this year.
And was that the first of three, you said? First of three, or was that the third of three?
Well, for this traffic stop, I don't know how many times I've been in court.
Okay.
I've been before the Superior Court 6 several times. Okay. Judge Morrissey. Okay. Which the last time I was in his courtroom, I gave him a demand and it required him to dismiss the case for lack of jurisdiction. He wouldn't even read it. He just looked at it, turned it over. Well, he saw the first thing and it said 11th Amendment on it, and he saw that's what he brought out. And then he turned it over and said, "Oh, I see your signature," and denied. Didn't even read the demand, or what you would call motion or someone else would call motion. I call it demand or require. And he didn't even read it, just denied it. Almost everything that was brought up in the court, he denied in my situation. He told the jury he determines what the law is, not the jury. Well, that's not what my Constitution says. It says the jury determines the law and the facts. Somebody's wrong. He took the oath to the Constitution, not me. It's to protect me, not him. And you. I mean, it's to protect the common people, and I'm a common person. Well, that judge never protected any of my constitutional rights. So, and I also believe you don't have constitutional rights unless you exercise them. So I'm exercising it. If they don't want me in an automobile, and I'll stay on the road, continue to do what I'm doing.
Do you have a message to the people out there? People might be worried. What?
I would say turn off your TV and start paying attention to and reading and do some research into what's going on in your government. Your government's been overthrown by a corporation. And study the right to travel. Find out. I've been studying 4.5 years. I found out. Read Supreme Court cases. Stop going to football games. Go to church and go home and study. Take care of your children. Stop trying to stay in your lazy boy chair watching ball games all day long. Or Dancing with the Stars. I don't know what women watch. I turned my TV on one time in maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was horrible. I even turned it on because Peyton Manning lost. So I haven't turned it on since. I read the Bible and I study the Constitution and I read law.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Read the Bible, study the Constitution, and overthrow this enemy that's taken over our government. Everyone will complain about their elected officials, but no one's doing anything about it. And so it's time to get off your couch, get out of your lazy boy, and do something about it. Exercise your rights. When you exercise them, you got them.
Thank you so much. much.